the second stage of the Mahayana path of accumulation, you'll never lose bodhicitta. You may take 3 countless eons to become a Buddha, but in every lifetime you'll still have bodhicitta, right? So the shamatha comes first, whether access to the first jhana, then you fully develop, you develop bodhicitta so it's authentic, spontaneous, uncontrived, and then you develop further into the path of preparation, small, medium, great. Then you develop some insight into shunyata, based upon your prior realization. Follow the path of preparation, until your realization of emptiness, of the unconditioned, which is the same as nirvana, becomes non-conceptual. Fusion of shamatha vipassana, reinforced by bodhicitta. When you have this very well-developed bodhicitta, which is growing deeper and deeper and deeper, with motivation of bodhicitta as a bodhisattva, have a fusion of shamatha vipassana, non-conceptual, non-mediated realization of emptiness, you achieve the third bodhisattva path, the path of seeing, darshana marga, and that is equivalent simultaneously with achieving the first bodhisattva ground, or bodhisattva bhumi. And then along the path of meditation, then you have 9 further grounds. You come to the 10th bhumi. Now you're the highest level bodhisattva. And then you enter into the vajra-like samadhi, then become Buddha. So that's it. So shamatha is way down there. It's in kindergarten. Kindergarten. Okay? One more. You mentioned about realization of shunyata, or emptiness, through jhana states. Can you exchange some thoughts about this? Is this the only way of understanding no self? There are certainly multiple interpretations of the whole theme of anatman or anatta. Definitely different interpretations. Theravada school, Vaibhashika, Sautrantika Chittamatra, Madhyamaka, Svatantrika Madhyamaka, Prasangika Madhyamaka. So there are definitely different views there. There's common ground, and that is, I believe, all schools of Buddhism, without exception, do refute, on the basis of experience, the notion of there being, it's called in Tibetan, takchik rawanchen, an immutable, unchanging, chik unitary, rawanchen, independent self. That somehow separate from the body-mind, I exist, I am unchanging, the same me every day. I wake up, that's me again, same me, I don't change. Body changes, mind changes, not me, I'm stable. That notion that there's just one me, one unitary self, and independent. I have a body and mind, but I stand apart. All schools of Buddhism refute that. But then when you go into shunyata, into madhyamaka, then it gets subtler and subtler. The point here is, in the madhyamaka, I'll speak with confidence, that the self is not simply refuted flat out, like there's no self. People who believe there's no self, if anybody believes no self, I would say, how many of you are not here? Raise your hand. This is certainly not the view of the madhyamaka, that we don't exist at all. You say, well, but I don't exist. I mean, I look in the body. There's no part of a body that is me. No compilation of the liver, the spleen, the brain that is me. So there's no me in the body. And then I look in the mind, all these mental factors, none of them are me. Consciousness is not me. So me, as this person, I'm not in the body, not in the mind. I'm not anywhere else. Therefore, I don't exist at all. Well, that's one conclusion. But if that's your reasoning, that you don't exist at all, because you, as some independent entity, are not equivalent to the body or all the compilation of body parts, not in the mind and not separate, if on that ground you think you don't exist at all, then I will tell you equally, there's no wristwatch in my hand. There's no wristwatch in my hand. Why? Oh, because the band is not the wristwatch, the face is not the wristwatch, the inside is not a wristwatch, or is the back. There's no wristwatch apart from all of the parts. There's no wristwatch among the parts. Therefore, there's no wristwatch in my hand. But who believes that? Right? And so the madhyamaka view here is, conventionally speaking, there is a wristwatch. There's no real wristwatch among the parts or separate from the parts, but as the Buddha said in the Pali Canon, like the chariot and its parts. No part of the chariot is a chariot, but to say that there aren't any chariots on planet Earth is pretty silly, right? Or there are no cars, because the wheels are not the car, the chassis is not the car, the transmission is not a car, there's no car among the parts or apart from the cars, therefore there are no cars in Singapore, which means there's never any traffic. Well, then we fall into silliness very quickly. So there are different views here, but the point in madhyamaka is there's no inherently existent chariot independent of conceptual designation. There's no self independent of conceptual designation, but relative to conceptualization. If we say, where is Gyokpa? Is Gyokpa here? Oh, there she is. There she is. Now, when raising the head, I didn't say, oh yes, her finger is Gyokpa. No, but conventionally speaking, we have a name for this person, and we don't find the person, but we say, is there a person here? And the answer is yes, she does things. And so, empty of inherent nature, but existing in this mode of pratitya samutpada, relative to our conceptual designations. So not to be found inherently, and yet not simply non-existent. On that notion, it's 9:30. Anybody who would like to leave, please feel free. No discourtesy, no disrespect. You're very welcome to go. Downstairs, any room. I don't want to hold you and have you deprived of sleep. Okay? So if you'd like to leave, please do now. No problem. Okay? Yes?
Can I just give some thoughts about what you mentioned about non-self?
Yes.
Actually, I agree with you. The concept of conventional self,
Yes.
wherein the understanding is that through your five senses and the mind,
Yes.
we exist.
Yes, in independence upon the five senses and the mind, we do exist conventionally.
So, the problem I have,
Yes.
having known myself, my own body,
Sure.
and a dog tag, and yeah, I know that as myself.
You know your body as yourself?
Body and a dog tag, just a name tag.
The dog tag. Is that what you call it? Oh, the dog tag. Okay, yes. Then your body and the dog tag. Okay, got it? Nama rupa. Rupa, and then you've got a nama.
That for 10 years.
Yes, right.
Suddenly you come to a blank wall and say, there is ultimate self, ultimate reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I asked the question, how does one break through from the conventional level to the ultimate level? Is it only through meditation?
I'm very leery of anyone saying this is the only way. I'm very leery of that. Because even in the Buddhist tradition, I mean with Bahia, he had meditated a lot. But the Buddha just gave him the paragraph. He became arhat, right? And we find many other cases, in the Mahayana tradition, the Zen tradition, that clearly if a person is very ripe, in the Buddhist terminology, very little dust on the eyes. Who knows what can catalyze? Who knows what can catalyze some very deep realization? This happens in the Dzogchen tradition, the Zen tradition. In one case, I think Tilopa, I think he slapped his student with a shoe or something. And then he suddenly had realization. So normally, I don't train my students by smacking them with the shoe, just hoping something good will happen. No, I just take more the traditional route, try to teach Shila, Samadhi, Prajna. But your point is good, and it's a very large point. The sequence, and I'm going to speak from the Dzogchen tradition. Okay? I can't speak from all traditions, I'll speak from one. The sequence here in classic Dzogchen, which in Tibetan Buddhism many people regard as just the pinnacle, the very deepest insight, the deepest wisdom, is first of all, of course, ethics, develop samadhi so the mind is very serviceable, and then really probe into, receive the teachings on emptiness, and probe into, is there anything inherently existent anywhere? Of a self, is there inherently existent mind? Is there inherently existent matter, space, time? Probe into, it's an ontological probe, really penetrating into with this applied and sustained thought, with vitarka and vichara, really investigating as carefully as possible. Is there anything existing from its own side, by its own nature? And seeing, in fact, nothing, not only me, my body doesn't exist inherently by its own nature. It too is just, the hand is not the body, the wrist is not the body, the liver is not the body. If we just take all my body parts, chop it up, put it through a chopper, put it in a big mound, that's not a body. It's called a mess, right? But it's not called a body, right? And so the body doesn't inherently exist. The finger doesn't exist. Now, in my training in science, I've been trained really primarily in physics. Well, this is one of the most fascinating things in the 20th century. That until the 19th century, pretty much all physicists thought, well, the whole physical universe, it really boils down to these little tiny nuggets of real atoms that are inherently, absolutely, objectively out there. Except, whoops, quantum mechanics came along. And it said, when we investigate, and I've spoken with, had long dialogues with some of the leading physicists really in the world, people like Anton Zeilinger. And in fact, this could go into a big conversation. But this was so fascinating. It was 1997, a meeting with the Dalai Lama and some world-class physicists, Anton Zeilinger, David Finkelstein, Pete Hutt. These are world-class people. Anybody who knows physics, these are big names. Anton Zeilinger is a superstar in Austria. And so Anton Zeilinger, this experimental physicist working in the foundations of quantum mechanics, he was explaining to the Dalai Lama that and he's not a Buddhist, nothing of that. He's just a straight physicist. He said, when we investigate like an elementary particle, like an electron, a photon, and we investigate it and try to seek out its actual nature objectively, inherently, we don't find it. It disappears. Only in the context of the system of measurement, the mode of observation and all of that, then it arises relative to system of measurement. But some inherently existent electron already existing in and of itself, not to be found. The Dalai Lama heard this and he said, this is amazing that you came to this insight without knowing Madhyamaka. The story's not finished. Then Anton Zeilinger said, what's Madhyamaka? And the Dalai Lama then, and he's a brilliant scholar and a very deep meditator, then he gave him a thumbnail sketch. This is Madhyamaka. You investigate anything, elementary particles, the mind, the self, the body, a galaxy, space-time, investigate anything looking for its own inherent nature, existing in and of itself, you don't find. And he explained it so compellingly, Anton Zeilinger said, that's amazing. How did you come to those insights without knowing quantum mechanics? So the sequence then is, first of all, like a good scientist developing your technology. If you're a quantum physicist, set up your quantum physics lab. You don't just try to do quantum mechanics with no laboratory equipment. Set up your lab, develop your shamatha. That's your technology. Then probe into the very nature, above all, the very nature of the mind. Do I have a mind, a citta? Is this inherently existent? My mind, separate from all objects, separate from everything else, existing in and of itself, and you penetrate, you focus, you just go into the very nature, and you see the empty, the shunya nature of your own mind, right? That breaks apart the reification, this ossification, this hardening of the notion, my mind is intelligent, my mind is stupid, my mind is what? Man's mind, woman's mind. Well, as if it's really there, you break that apart. And you see the mind is just a matrix of appearances. But there's no one thing, a real inherently existent entity called the mind. So you really practice vipassana, focusing in on the very nature of the mind itself to penetrate to its empty nature. Once you've gained that realization, then you go into Dzogchen practice. And that's this profound not doing of just open presence, total inactivity of just the mind open. And then what occurs is there's called, in Tibetan, tekchur, the breakthrough, where you break through this alaya vijnana, you break through your own psyche, you break through, break through this alaya vijnana. And then the bottom falls out. And then you rest in the ultimate ground state of awareness, and that's Rigpa. Rigpa, Jnana, Tathagata Garbha, Buddha nature, goes by many names. It may be, I don't know, it may be what's referred to in the Pali Canon as this dimension of consciousness that is unborn, unceasing, non-manifested consciousness. Because there are references to that in the Pali Canon. Maybe that's nothing other than Rigpa. In which case, then we have Buddha nature in the Pali Canon. I don't know. Okay. So that's that. So there's a sequence there. It's like being in the midst of a dream, an actual dream, and practicing vipassana within the dream to the point that you recognize everything in the dream that exists only in interdependence, but there is nothing in the dream, not you or any appearance or any object or any one in the dream that has their own inherent nature existing in and of itself. In realizing in the midst of a non-lucid dream, let's imagine you're practicing vipassana in the midst of a non-lucid dream, and you're meditating and focusing on, does anything here have its own inherent nature? And you see nothing has its own individuated inherent nature. You see, wow, everything's empty. Everything's dreamlike. Because nothing has this substantial inherent nature of its own. You realize that, oh, everything's dreamlike. And then suddenly the bottom falls out. And you say, this isn't dreamlike. This is a dream. And then suddenly you realize that everything in the dream, yourself, everybody, every person, every event, all of this is arising from the substrate consciousness. So it's only a metaphor. This is not realization of Rigpa. But it's becoming lucid and recognizing not only is everything empty of inherent nature, everything is manifesting from the same ground. And so the Buddha, when asked, are you a man, are you a celestial being, and so forth, he said, no, no, no. He said, who are you then? I'm awake. So I think what the Buddha was is lucid in the waking state, implying that we're still dreaming. Okay. Oh yeah? I'm making some progress here, not as fast as I wanted. We still have, we have 9 minutes. By my watch, this is absolute time. My wristwatch. You're the boss. Does a person require less sleep because of meditation? That may happen naturally, but you don't want to force it. You don't want to say, oh, now I'm meditating, I'm going to sleep 1 hour less every night. You'll probably just wind up sleep deprived. But if your practice, your shamatha practice and so forth, if they're going well, and basically you're experiencing less and less wear and tear on the mind. Because we can ask, what exhausts us? Well, what really exhausts us is all the vikalpa, all the prapancha, all the turbulence, the unrest, the friction, the anxiety, hope and fear, all the grasping. Grasping is exhausting. This graha, this grasping of hope and fear, desire, craving, aversion, it's just exhausting. So some people wake up tired. You know, they grasp all the way through the night. One grasping dream after another, they wake up, I'm already tired, now what can I grasp at? You know? So they're always tired. Because they're grasping all the time. So the less one is grasping, the less hope and fear, craving and aversion, the less wear and tear, which means you're not getting so tired. One of my teachers, Yangtan Rinpoche, Dzogchen master, 73 years old. Mind crystal clear like a bell. He sleeps about 1.5 hours a night. And he sleeps sitting up. Like that. He just, like that. Clear. Okay. Very little wear and tear. My own teacher, Gyatso Rinpoche, who's known him since he was a youth, said he's definitely achieved shamatha and very deep insight in vipassana. So if you have really very deep insight, shamatha, vipassana, then very little wear and tear in your mind. Some yogis don't need to sleep at all. Just so silky smooth. They're not wearing themselves out. Why does the body feel hot upon relaxation just before meditating? The hot sensation usually goes away rather quickly. This may happen right before meditating. I think it's more common. A sense of heat builds up in the body while meditating, right? And there are various explanations for that. A very prosaic explanation is if you're meditating correctly, you are getting more and more relaxed. You're not getting tenser. As you get more relaxed, this is known in biofeedback. You get more relaxed, your capillaries open up. Capillaries open up, the blood flows better, and it warms you up. So there you go. Capillaries are opening, better blood flow, you get warmer. So that's one explanation, nice and prosaic. There is another explanation too, though, and this goes into more the subtle physiology of Hinduism, of Buddhism, I suspect, but I don't really know of Taoism. And that is down here at the navel. There is a chakra there. And this is just a fact. I mean, it's exploited in the practice of Tummo, this Tibetan practice, again, originating in India, where you really consciously arouse this fire, this inner heat at the navel. And then you have these people who will be drying off one wet sheet after another as they generate so much heat in the body. It's a specific practice for arousing that heat. And actually, it's very useful. If you're living up at, let's say, 5,000 meters through the winter and you have no heating, it's a good way to get through the winter. Keeps you warm, literally. So Milarepa would wear just one little cotton, about cotton like what I'm wearing, a cotton gown, and he kept himself warm at 5,000 to 6,000 meters, all through the icy cold Himalayan winters. You just keep the Tummo going, keep the home fires burning. And so even if you're not practicing Tummo per se, by going deep into meditation, it may actually open up and arouse this inner heat, and that can flood your body. I've had a little bit of experience of that when I was in Switzerland. Sometimes it arose kind of spontaneously. I didn't really want it because it was kind of like out of control. But it would sometimes just by eating something like a lunch, it would spark this heat. And then I'd feel this whole rush of heat. I remember going out in midwinter in Switzerland, and I was just pouring pitchers of water over my shoulders, and steam was coming off the shoulders. Okay, it's not something to aspire to. It's kind of a nuisance thing. So it was not an attainment. big nuisance. What is the purpose of practicing lucid dreaming? Here's the reason. That is, you can practice for all kinds of reasons. And people secularly will just do it for fun and games. Frankly, dream sex is one of the big options for, just for mundane pleasure. But dream yoga, that's not the point of dream yoga. And I think there are various reasons. I'll try to give a short answer. That is, throughout the Buddhist teachings, Pali Canon, Mahayana, Vajrayana, everything, we get this recurrent theme: phenomena are like a dream. Phenomena are illusory, dream-like an echo, like a mirage. We get these 10 metaphors. Runs through all of Buddhism. Well, if you'd like to know, well, in what way is this like a dream? I mean, this right now, sitting at the Buddhist library, this is like a dream? Well, like a dream? Well, like what? So if you would like to really know, well, what does it mean to be dream-like? Well, then know what a dream is like. And that means investigate it, really fathom what is dream reality, fathom that clearly, then come back to the waking state, and then explore to what extent is this similar to a dream. So that would be one rationale. It's nighttime vipassana practice, where in the midst of a dream you are lucid, you know that you're dreaming, and then you can start to really explore the nature of dream reality. You can start seeing whether you can walk through walls, whether you can walk on water, whether you can fly. You can run whole experiments to see for yourself in the midst of dream reality, is there anything here inherently existent? So it's a whole practice. That's one reason. It is really for the sake of insight, to come back to waking experience and really fathom to what extent is this dream like, now that you really know what a dream is like. But the primary reason in Tibetan practice, why they will, in very traditional practice, while practicing dream yoga, is to become lucid in the dream, insofar as you're lucid, to the extent that you recognize and really fathom the nature of the dream reality as you're experiencing it, the greater you're free. You have real freedom. That is, if you see somebody lunging at you with a spear, you know it's a dream. You don't even have to dodge. You don't have to run. Say, this is a dream. Go ahead, ram me through what you'd like. This is a dream body. That's a dream spear. Go for it. Knock yourself out. It's a dream. So you're fearless. And you can make wise decisions. You're not just reacting emotionally out of habit, which is what we normally do in a non-lucid dream. Oh, he's running after me with a spear. I have to run. This is going to be terrible. Because you don't get it. It's a dream spear. There's not one molecule in that spear. So, in a similar fashion, in Mahayana Buddhism, and actually there's one reference in the Pali Canon up to this antarabhava, a state of existence following death prior to your next re-embodiment. This antarabhava, and I'll just speak from Tibetan Buddhism, this is said to have a very, very strong parallel to the dream state. It's not the same, very strong parallel. So in traditional Tibetan Buddhist practice, people will practice dream yoga to become really knowing the nature of dream experience, preparing themselves so when they're in the bardo, they recognize the bardo as the bardo. They're lucid in the bardo. They're not confused, they're not deluded, they're not thinking it's something else that it's not. And insofar as you're lucid in the bardo, then you have the possibility of drawing from your full intelligence, your wisdom, and so forth, and not just reacting to the apparitions, the appearances in the dream, hope and fear, craving and hostility. Say, this is the bardo. Time to make good choices. Time to direct your awareness to a place where you can really continue your practice and have a very meaningful continuity of your own spiritual path. So that's the primary reason. To become lucid in the bardo so you can make wise choices and not just see attractive and unattractive things, freaking out, reacting with hope and fear, with craving and aggression, and then just tumbling on in samsara in one ongoing stream of delusion. So that's a major reason. Where's my wrist? There we are. 1 more minute. What can I do if I experience bodily aches and pains? How do I bring the attention back to the breath? Good, that's a short one. Try not to have aches and pains. Really. Try not to. That if you start having aches and pains, move for heaven's sakes. Move mindfully. Lie down. Get yourself a zero-gravity chair. Or find an easy chair. But it's just not useful to have ongoing aches and pains. And I know a growing number of meditators now, of my generation, who've been meditating 20, 30, 40 years, having knee replacements, hip replacements, ongoing chiropractic adjustments, surgery, because they've not been paying attention to the body. Or they've just been using patience and sheer determination instead of wisdom. Meditation should not wear out the body parts, so you wind up arthritic with a crooked spine and your knees are blown out, right? So we want to take care of the body so we can meditate for a long time. And if that means meditating on a chair, then, you know, get over it. Meditate in a chair. Or need zero gravity, or a nice cushion, or lie down, or alternate between sitting and walking. A lot of people do that. Very good. But we don't want to put up with a lot of aches and pains because the body's shouting at you. The body's shouting at you. So don't kill the messenger. You know, just shut up, shut up, shut up. You know, don't kill the messenger. If the body is aching and paining you, shouting at you, hey, it's really bad down here, don't say, well, it doesn't matter, I'm a yogi. You know? Listen to it. Listen, give it a break. Because you might want to use your body again. You might have some use for it. You know, your hips, your knees, your back. So give yourself a break. And you might practice yoga. You know, get the body more supple. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, whatever you like. Or even good walking. Just get out and go for a good walk. But get the body limber, supple. And so you can experience as little discomfort in meditation as you can. Good rule of thumb. Okay? Hola so. I'm as good as my word. At least tonight. Yeah, it's 9:45. I wish you sweet dreams. Good night.